All right, we are live. The audio's up. The video feed is up. That was a great episode. I don't even know how to really say this. I mean, it's 2 episodes technically, but we're talking about it, you know, like it's 1 episode. It's one night, but it was an amazing 2 episodes, episodes 3 and 4. I got a ton of notes here, guys. I don't know if we're going to get through all this, but really with these first couple of episodes, because this is the 10-part documentary, these first couple of episodes, they're really setting things up. And every now and then, they're going back to The Last Dance, the final season, that being, 97, 98. It's a little confusing. We're jumping back and forth in between, different time periods. But for the most part, the first 4 episodes so far have been setting things up. And we got a lot to talk about. I'm going to be talking about, obviously, everything that happened in these last 2 episodes. And I'm also going to be giving you guys some things you might not know that weren't touched on in these episodes, but relate to things that happened, in these events. So, obviously this is our first live stream together, guys. I want to shout everyone in the chat out. Shout out to Grant Wagner. Thanks for joining. Parker Hill, shout out to you. I know I was muted. I forgot to turn on the mic. Thanks everyone for joining. We're going to be doing this after every episode or episodes, guys. So this is a new thing. I didn't do it for the first 2 because I didn't really know what to expect from the show. I knew it was going to be big, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to do something like this. But after those first 2 episodes, I was pretty sure I wanted to do a live stream, because you only get to see it live once, right? I mean, this is going to be on Netflix. It'll be on ESPN Plus or whatever. But live in the moment, it only happens once. And I wanted to, do a live stream with you guys. I think live streams are super fun anyways. Let me quickly get you guys a link here, because if you guys don't have to, guys, but there are super chats enabled. However, if you want the little animation to pop up if you do donate, I'll give you guys that link, because hopefully some animations show up. We got subscriber animation. Whenever someone subscribes, an animation will show up. I'm new to this streaming thing, so you guys are going to stick in there with me. But I want to start the show with the segment that we're going to be doing every night and or every episode, where we review an iconic Air Jordan sneaker. And tonight, the sneaker we're going to review are these, the Air Jordan 11s. Let me get the other one. Now, this shoe is perhaps the most iconic Air Jordan. I think everyone has their favorite Jordan, and Air Jordan, I should say. But I think the Holy Trinity, the 3 most important or iconic Air Jordans, I'm not saying my favorite, I'm not saying your favorite. I'm just saying the 3 most iconic Air Jordans is unassailable. You can't argue with them. It's the 1, the 3, and these. Shout out to Parker Hill for subscribing. As you can see, Phil Jackson, he approves. But those 3 Jordans, the 3, the 1, and the 11, it's unassailable. Those are the 3 most iconic Jordans ever, for different reasons. But the Jordan 11 is iconic because this was the shoe that Tinker Hatfield says it's probably his favorite shoe that he's ever created. And this is the guy who's created some of the most iconic sneakers, not just Nike sneakers, just sneakers in general. And if Tinker Hatfield thinks this is his favorite Jordan ever, I mean, it's pretty hard to argue with the guy that created the shoe. You know what I'm saying? Now, I've had a few pairs of the Jordan 11. A shout out to Faux EJ for subscribing. I have 3 colorways here that we're going to get through. But, and then, of course, after this, guys, we're going to talk about the latest episode. But the Jordan 11 is so iconic because it has a ballistic mesh upper, right? And it's actually Cordura mesh is the official material that it's made out of, but Nike gave it the branding ballistic mesh because it just, I guess that's a more marketable name. But this mesh material is Cordura mesh, and it's lighter and durable. It's durable, and it really just gave the shoe a unique look in the Air Jordan series, because if you think about it, the Jordans before the 11, there was no mesh. it was all leathers, right? I mean, the Jordan 1, leather. 2, 3, the 4 had a little bit of mesh in between, but it was nubuck and leather. 5, nubuck. 6, leather. 7, 8, nubuck. The list goes on. The 11s was the first time that Air Jordans used like mesh, and it made the shoe very modern, made the shoe light, and of course, with the air zoo or the air in cushioning, it just made it a really comfortable shoe. Now, let me check my notes. It had the carbon fiber plate, which was iconic. It's huge carbon fiber plate. And the patent leather mudguard is also a standout feature here on the Jordan 11. A shout out to Kelvic J. Goals. Hopefully I'm saying that right, for subscribing. Phil Jackson approves. The patent leather, now I'm not a huge fan of patent leather. I think that's a style that worked in the 90s. But shout out to Tyler Roscoe for subscribing. Thank you very much, my man. But the Jordan 11, the patent leather in the modern era just doesn't really work for me. Patent leather is that's something that was in the 90s, if you know what I'm saying. So I think patent leather worked for this shoe. However, I don't think it works anymore. But the reason why Tinker put patent leather here is because it's lighter than genuine leather. It doesn't stretch as much, and it offered more stability because Tinker noticed that when Jordan would lean too far in one direction, his foot would kind of roll off. And there's some great photos of Jordan, driving baseline, and you could see that his foot's kind of, rolling over, peeking over that footbed. So that patent leather, mudguard, which looks iconic, it also had it had an effect on its performance. It gave it more stability. Now, Jordan said when this shoe came out that one day someone's going to wear this with the tux, and that actually happened. Boyz II Men in the 1996 Grammys wore this on stage, I believe, although I couldn't find any photos of it. But legend has it, I guess. I'm just going to take someone's word for it. Shout out to Rooney Rick. Thanks for subscribing, my man. Appreciate it. That is why the Boyz II Men wearing this in the Grammys really made this shoe not just transcend sneaker culture, but it went into the mainstream. If you weren't into sneakers, you knew of the Jordan 11. It was right there on the Grammys, on one of the biggest stages in the world. It just transcended sneaker culture. And if you weren't into sneakers at all, you still knew of the Jordan 11 and perhaps even wanted a pair for yourself. Like, that's how iconic this shoe was. And there was also some controversy surrounding it. Around this time, Jordans were really tough to get, and there was some violence around, getting Air Jordans, lines out the door, people getting robbed for their sneakers. And Nike infamously, had not a mute response to it, but not an ideal one that the public really appreciated. I think Nike is the leader in trying to figure out safe ways to, release sneakers to people, because it can get dangerous, but it's a learning experience, guys. And Nike can't get it right every time. And I don't really blame Nike too much because, why are you robbing? You got to blame the people who are robbing other people for sneakers, if you know what I'm saying. But the Jordan 11 is definitely iconic. Now, Jordan debuted these against Nike's will in the 1995 playoffs. Nike and Tinker sent Jordan some samples, and they said, don't wear these. They were playing the Magic at the time. Jordan had just come out of retirement from baseball, and Jordan couldn't resist. He wore them anyways, and he got fined $5,000, not from Nike, but from the NBA, because the shoe, he debuted the Concord colorway, which I don't have right now. He wore the Concord colorway, and that was predominantly white, right? It was white. It had the black patent leather, and all of his teammates wore black shoes. So the NBA fined him. They had strict, uniform rules back then. They kind of still do, but they've loosened it up, especially with the sneakers a couple seasons ago. But Tinker was pretty mad. A shout out to Jagdish Tiwana for subscribing. Appreciate it. But Jordan kept wearing them. However, in game 3, I believe, let me see. I have it in my notes here. In game 3, he decided to not wear it. Now, story has it that he got tired of getting fined. I don't believe that for 1 second. I'm pretty sure Nike was paying the fine anyways. Maybe they weren't. Maybe that's why he didn't want to do it. But Jordan's got money. Anyways, legend has it he got tired and he borrowed one of Penny Hardaway's shoes. And it was the Air, what was it called? The Air Flight 1. I have a photo of it. But here, check this out, guys. Here's the shoe that Jordan wore. If I could zoom this in for you guys, give me a second. This is the shoe that Jordan wore that he got fined for, and apparently he got tired of it, so he wore these, the Air Flight 1s or something like that. And this was the shoe Penny was wearing, and I believe on the back tab here there was some Penny branding, and Jordan cut it off. Here he is wearing it. Why can't you guys see that? Hold on. There he is wearing it with Phil Jackson. He's wearing the Pennies, or the Air Flight 1s. But then in game 4, Jordan went back to wearing the 11s, and that's when he debuted the Space Jam colorway, which, of course, is infamous. And that shoe, he debuted that in 1995. That colorway didn't drop until 2000. So for 5 years, it was kind of a mythical shoe. And, of course, now we've had other Space Jam retros since. We just had the one with the 45 on the back of the heel. Here you can see there's 23. The most recent Space Jam, which I actually have. I'm sorry. I should bring that out. I got the box here, which I bought from Soul Supremacy. Shout out to them, Bay Area sneaker reseller. But this is the retro from 2000. As you can see, the outsole is yellowing. I have worn these quite a bit in rainy weather for some reason. But here they are, the Space Jam 11s. Now, mine has a 23 in the back, but the most recent retro, like I said, had the 45. I really want to get a pair. But this, of course, debuted in Space Jam as well, and people really wanted them. And again, they didn't retro till 2000. So, the Jordan 11 was definitely an iconic sneaker. I've had quite a bit of colorways. I've got rid of some of them. I regret getting rid of my Columbias, which the Columbias were famously worn by Will Smith in the finale of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But let me know what you guys think of the Jordan 11. What's your favorite colorway of the Jordan 11? Because to me, my favorite colorway of the Jordan 11 is probably the Breads. It's got to be the Breads. I mean, these are just dope. Got the black, got the white, got the red outsole. However, I do have this colorway. I forget what these are called. These are called like the Flight of something. School of Flight or something like that. It came in a pack with a colorway of the Air Jordan 29s, which were Carolina blue as well. Now, I have not worn these. These are fresh out the box. I just haven't had a chance to really rock these. It's a pretty loud colorway, but this is certainly one of my favorite colorways. But, I mean, I can't argue with the Breads. I mean, these are just iconic. Now, Nike did release a low version of the Jordan 11, and I think the newer colorways of the lows are better than the mids or the highs or whatever you want to call these. I mean, we've had like the DMPs, which were basically Concord with little gold hints. Those are dope, obviously. People seem to love the Gammas, which was like all black with yellow and blue. I'm not a fan of those. I like the cap and gowns, which are basically all black Jordan 11s. The 72 and 10s, which were those red, black, and white colored Jordan 11s, those were okay, but the materials were really stiff, and it wasn't an OG colorway, so it was just like, eh. These Carolinas are cool, but the lows, I mean, if we take a look here, if we just type in Jordan 11 low. Now, Jason Berry in the chat says, cool gray all day. Yeah, cool grays. Those are dope as well. Stubbs says he likes the Concords and the Space Jams. Yeah, I mean, you can't really argue with the OGs. Jaden agrees. Concords go really hard. Yes, sir. A shout out to Vince DeCastro. Thanks for joining, my man. But just take a look here. The Jordan 11, I feel like, has better new colorways. Like, this is awesome. I don't know what these are called. I guess they're breads, reverse breads or something like that. These blue ones are dope. Obviously, the Jeters right here, these are awesome. the lows just have better colorways, new colorways in my opinion. And even though these reptile ones are like kind of weird, I don't know, guys. I actually kind of dig these, you know? I think the lows are dope. Now, I don't have a pair of lows. I'm an OG kind of guy, like I said, but I do appreciate these colorways. I'd say my favorite new colorway of the Jordan 11 High is the cap and gowns. I mean, you can't go wrong with the all black. I mean, right there. Can't go wrong with that. These are crazy. These go hard. But there you guys have it. That was the sneaker for today's episode, the Air Jordan 11. Let me know which sneaker we should go over in the next episode, next week's episode. Go ahead, drop it in the chat right now. I'd appreciate it. But now we're going to talk about episodes 3 and 4 of The Last Dance. We got a lot to talk about. Let me quickly see if I could, on the fly, get you guys a link that I think you guys should have here. I don't want to spend too much time trying to find this link. Anyways, let's talk about that last episode. Now, I quickly want to recap episodes 1 and 2 because we didn't do a live stream for it. So I quickly want to bring up some things from the first 2 episodes that stood out to me. Now, we all remember the clip of Jordan talking about the Bulls traveling cocaine circus, right? That was a pretty big moment in this documentary. And the thing about this documentary that's interesting is we're getting never-before-seen footage, obviously, from that last season. A camera crew had unprecedented access that was basically an idea of Adam Silver, the current commissioner, but back then he was not the commissioner. He might have been the head of NBA Entertainment, I believe, at the time. But it was Adam Silver's idea that was brought to his attention by Klay Thompson's dad, Michael Thompson. Michael Thompson actually kind of, knew that it was the last season for the Bulls, so he went to Adam Silver, and Adam Silver went to Jordan and Reinsdorf and, Phil and all those guys, and they set up this deal to get unprecedented access. But aside from the footage from the last season, the 98 season, we're also getting stories that have never been told. And there was a great story in tonight's episode that we'll get to, but this cocaine traveling circus for the Bulls, it was a story that was obviously in the paper, but we never really got Michael's take on it. And he obviously responded to it, and he basically, told us, he never did any of that and all that. Now, I tend to believe him. Not only do I want to believe him, but as someone who hasn't done hard drugs myself, I get it. I get the fear of doing drugs. You guys shouldn't do drugs. So if we're asking the question if Jordan really didn't do anything, I'm going to say yes. What do you guys think? I don't think he did. I mean, to achieve the level of greatness that he did while doing, drugs, it's almost impossible. Now, it's not impossible, but I don't think he did. Now, the next thing that stood out to me in the first 2 episodes was, remember the story that they told about Jordan coming back from injury, and they gave him a minutes restriction and all this stuff, and Jordan, he was just losing his mind. He's like, I need to play. It was like a 14-minutes restriction, I think, right? Absurd. And Jordan was, I believe they were in Indiana, I think, if I'm right. Maybe it was Cleveland. I forget what team they're playing, but it was like a game they needed to win to make the playoffs, and the front office was like, no, we need to get our draft pick. Don't play Jordan 14 or 15 minutes. They were telling the coach that he was going to get fired on the spot if he allowed that to happen. And I think the Bulls were in a close game, and Jordan was like, coach, put me in. Screw these guys. He said, F these guys, which the swearing has been great. On national TV, we're getting F-bombs left and right. But the coach, like, Michael, I'm going to lose my job, so he didn't put him in. And, the documentary set all this up by saying, it's about his competitiveness. This is what makes Michael. This is what Michael is all about. He's all about winning at all costs, no matter what. He doesn't think about tomorrow. He thinks about right now. And yes, that's true. This is a good way to bring up, Jordan's mindset, to kind of get in his mind a little bit. But this story also, I think, kind of taught Jordan a lesson that while the Bulls and his team needed him, they didn't need him to make every shot. Because as we know in the story, John Paxson hits the game winner and the Bulls make the playoffs. And Jordan is right there celebrating with everyone, which is a sign of a winner, not a selfish guy who's like, I wanted to be out there. I think a lot of people might have thought that Jordan was being selfish, but he was out there celebrating. A selfish guy would have been like, I should have been out there no matter what, even though we won. That's selfish. But Jordan was right there celebrating with everyone. And I thought this taught Jordan a lesson that he doesn't need to make every shot. And that's why we see Jordan open up to the triangle offense that we saw it being explored in tonight's episodes. Phil Jackson moving the ball around, Tex Winter as well, right? We see Jordan opening up because of that experience that he saw John Paxson. Now, I don't want to say this is the genesis of Jordan's unselfishness on the court, but I just think it's one of the building blocks that made Jordan realize that, hey, I got 4 other guys out here with me on the court. I could pass to these guys because all the attention's on me, and these guys are going to make their shots down. But what he did was he kept the pressure on those guys in practice so that when that moment came, those guys were ready. And it's all this is, I'm trying to connect the dots of the psychology of Michael Jordan. Obviously, he's an icon, a legend, a hero of mine. So to hear him, shout out to Ali Cias for subscribing, but to hear him say these things and to see the footage and get people's different perspectives, it really shows me what Michael's all about and how he came about being the way he is. So I thought that John Paxson thing and that injury might have been the best thing that ever happened to Jordan. You know, we see him pass to Paxson in Phoenix to win the championship in 93. We see him pass to Steve Kerr at the top of the key where Steve Kerr says, I'm going to be open. And Jordan was like, I already am a step ahead of you. I'm going to pass you because Stockton's helping off me. So without that experience of Jordan sitting on the bench and watching John Paxson and his team win a game when he's not taking the shot, I'm not so sure Jordan is open to the triangle, is open to passing to Steve Kerr, is open passing to John Paxson. I don't know. It's an unanswerable question, but I think that was a very crucial moment in Michael Jordan's career. Let's take a look at a chat here. Brian 12ish says, dude was a country kid who was laser focused on ball during college. Didn't find it at all hard to believe that he wasn't doing coke when he was his 20. I'm not going to say he ever did, though. Interesting. Hey, thank you for joining the chat, though, Brian. I really appreciate it. Monica says, I like to believe he didn't participate in those parties. I mean, he separated himself from the team. That made sense, as well as being the best on the team. I'm right there with you, Monica. Monica, whatever your name is. I'm right there with you. I like to believe it. And we have every right to believe Michael. I mean, Michael isn't really one to lie to us. If he doesn't want us to know something, he's just not going to tell us. But if he's telling you something, you tend to take his word for it because of what we know from Michael. It's getting hot in here, guys. Hold on. I'm opening the window real quick. It's getting a little hot out here in the bay. But yeah, I like to believe he didn't participate in those parties whatsoever. So let's hey, shout out to Maze and Marie for subscribing. Really appreciate you. Phil Jackson approves. I'll have a new one for next episode, a new GIF for you guys. So be sure to keep subscribing, keep donating if you want to. I know times are tough. You don't have to. I don't want anyone to feel like they have to donate, but super chats are very much appreciated. They are enabled. So if you want to, go right ahead. Now, the last thing I want to bring up about the first 2 episodes was Jerry Krause wanting to break up this Bulls squad, this regime, you could say, or this dynasty, whatever you want to say. I obviously wasn't old enough to develop a thought about it at the time, and I never really had time to develop a thought about it because, you know, it was just in the past. But now that this documentary is coming out, opinions are starting to flow, not just from me, but from, you know, everyone. This documentary is the talk of the town. So now that I have time to kind of develop an opinion on it, it's current event worthy. Krause wanting to break up this Bulls, it's indefensible. What are you doing? Like, honestly, bro, you got Michael Jordan, the best player. In 98, he was considered the best player to have ever played the game. You have that guy. You have Phil Jackson, a guy who's brought you nothing but rings. You got Scottie Pippen. You got Dennis Rodman. Now, listen, I think the Bulls could have found a middle ground here. Krause and Jackson obviously had their problems. They didn't like each other, but MJ didn't want to play for anyone else. And rightfully so. Phil was the guy that brought out the most, and not just Michael, but all of Michael's teammates. And Michael knew that. And Michael didn't want to let Krause, or he didn't want to play without Phil because he feared that whoever they brought in as the next coach, whatever that guy's name was, whoever he was, Tim Floyd, what was his name? Help me out, chat. But whoever that guy was, he wasn't going to bring out the most in whoever else was on the roster. Phil did that, and Michael knew that, and Michael didn't want to lose that. Now, had Krause been like, all right, Michael, we know you don't want to play without Phil. You never said you didn't want to play without Scottie. You didn't say you didn't want to play with Rodman. We feel as if it's our best interest to get a nice trade package from Scottie Pippen because there was a lot. He was almost traded for Shawn Kemp, which they didn't bring up in this documentary. That deal was pretty close to being done, like about as close as you can get. Shawn Kemp for Scottie Pippen? Boy, wouldn't that be interesting? You would have Pippen and Gary Payton, two of probably the best defenders ever on the same team. That would have been crazy, but that didn't happen. What if Jerry Krause was like, hey, he's going down, which we'll talk about in a little bit because this last episode really revolved around Rodman. Hey, Rodman's going down. We want to get more assets from Scottie Pippen as a trade package. He's not happy here. He's getting underpaid. He doesn't want to play here. We'll keep you and Phil, but we're going to move some things around you. Would have Jordan said yes, and would he not retired? We don't know. It's impossible to know, but maybe. It is possible to assume that Jordan, because he definitely had a couple years left in him, and Jordan was on record saying he wanted to defend his title until he lost it. However, it might have been in the best interest of Michael Jordan to retire because what's the deal? When we're talking about GOATs, when we're talking about who's the GOAT, right? We throw out Jordan, LeBron, Magic, Bird, Russell, Kobe. We throw out these guys. When we bring up Jordan in the GOAT conversation, we say, never lost. Never lost. Never lost in the finals. Never lost. But Jordan, he wanted to defend his title until he lost. He's on record saying that. However, Phil didn't return, Jordan retired, and Michael Jordan remains undefeated in the NBA Finals. It's funny how things work out. It's funny. But Jerry Krause, RIP, rest in peace. Jerry Krause, I just want to say, you wanting to break up the Bulls was indefensible. In fact, it was laughable. Why would you want to do that? And what's even more crazy is Reinsdorf, the owner, allowed it to happen. Now, I get it. Reinsdorf hired Jerry Krause, and Jerry Krause was doing what he thought was in the best interest of his job. He was just trying to do his job the right way, the way he thought was right. And Reinsdorf was a very hands-off owner in a way. But you got to step in and say, listen, this guy, Michael Jordan, is making me a lot of money. I want to keep him for as long as I can. And there was some concern, as we saw in tonight's episode, about Reinsdorf was a little concerned of filling 21,000 seats in the United Center if Michael Jordan wasn't playing. So Reinsdorf kind of just sat there and let it happen while Krause was breaking up this team, really, which felt like a personal vendetta. Now, was he right? No, nobody was right. Jordan wasn't right. Phil wasn't right. Reinsdorf wasn't right. This is a lose-lose situation for everyone involved. Nobody was right. But it would have been interesting to see if Jordan didn't retire, where he could go from there. And a main reason why he retired was because he wanted to play for Phil, man. And he didn't want to play for anyone else. And if he had to go to another team, Phil had to go with him. And I don't know if Phil wanted to continue coaching. He took a break a little bit. He eventually, went to the Lakers in, was it 99 or was it 2000? I think it was 99. But yeah, I mean, it's just indefensible that he wanted to break up the Bulls. Let's take a look at the chat here. Um, Stubbs says, personally, he doesn't have a final opinion on Jerry. He isn't around to give his final decision on why he did what he did. And I'm not saying I agree with what he did, but everyone has to say their piece. Great point, Stubbs. Absolutely fantastic point, Stubbs. Thank you so much for that comment. Thanks for joining the live stream. You're right, man. It's a bummer that Jerry isn't here to give his side of the story. It really isn't. But what we do know about Jerry is he was just as competitive as any other GM out there, and he probably was competing with Michael. And when you get two guys who are so competitive, man, they butt heads. Sometimes they work together, but a lot of times they butt heads. And I think that's what happened here with Jerry and Phil, and Michael for that matter. Brian in the chat says, if they don't shoot Krause some bail on why he took no Phil, even if they go 82-0 stance, then it's absolutely inexcusable. Yeah, man. It's inexcusable. If Phil Jackson went 82-0 in that season, you got to bring him back. You gotta. You just have to. Wow, we got our first super chat from Taloy. Hopefully I'm saying this right, guys. Shout out to Taloy. We got Kobe right there. Hey. Taloy says, coffee for tonight, bro. Keep up the good work. Love your YouTube channel. Hey, man, that means the world to me. Make sure you join next week. We're gonna be doing this every night for The Last Dance. Really appreciate the $5, man. Shout out to Taloy. Thanks for joining. Let's take a look at the chat before we get into this tonight's episode, the recap. Josiah says he really hopes I read this. He says, I really appreciate your work ethic and determination to entertain us during quarantine. Keep up the absolutely amazing work. Hey, Josiah, man, that means a lot to me. And I want to bring this up, and then I promise you guys immediately we'll get into episodes 3 and 4. The reason why I wanted to do this is because this documentary means so much to me, because anyone who knows me personally knows how competitive I am. And it's a curse. I wish I wasn't this competitive, but it is who I am. And that's why I took the Kobe death so hard. When Kobe passed away, it hurt me so bad because Kobe was my hero. And I grew up without a dad, right, guys? And when I met my dad for the first time when I was like 21 years old, I realized I was nothing like this guy. I might look like him a little bit, but our personalities, I mean, we were just different people. He didn't raise me. I was just different. And I looked at my mom and I go, yeah, I'm somewhat like her personality-wise, but there's some things about me that aren't. And that's when I realized that guys like Michael, guys like Kobe's, guys that I looked up to, I'm more like them than my biological father. I'm so competitive. It's a curse. I'm so competitive. Some people thought I was an asshole growing up. You know, that's just the way I was. So watching this documentary, I want you guys to picture something. Imagine a director came up to you, and this director said, hey, I want to make a documentary about your personality. You're sitting there like, what? What does that mean? What are you going to show? What does that mean? He goes, don't worry. He or she goes, don't worry. I'm just going to make a documentary about your personality. It's going to be a portrait of your personality. And you sit there and you watch it. How odd of an experience would that be? Like, wow. This is what people think I am. When I watch this documentary and I watch about Michael being so competitive, Jerry Krause being so competitive, I realize that this is the stuff that raised me, man. This is what made me. So Josiah, thank you so much for your comment. You realize the work ethic. You see the work ethic, the determination I have, the quality of the content that I put out. I may not put out the most content, but I put out the best content that I can make at that moment. Every video that comes out, guys, that's the best content that I can make. And I believe I got that from guys like Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. And that's why this documentary means a lot to me. So let's get into episodes 3 and 4, guys. I'm going to have to put a timestamp for people because we're already 37 minutes in, but I don't know how long this is going to go. But so episodes 3 and 4, a majority of it surrounded Dennis Rodman and how Scotty, episode 2 left off on Scotty sitting out demanding a trade, which was crazy. And Dennis gets ejected, right? And Michael's pissed. And Dennis knows Michael's pissed. And this is one of the most manliest things ever, right? Dennis goes to the room and asks Jordan for an extra cigar. And Jordan says, yeah, okay, gives him the cigar, and that's it. Dennis seemingly leaves the room. But both Dennis and Jordan knew, hey, I'm sorry. I messed up. It's like they're too manly to say sorry and get in their feelings. Like, hey, Michael, I'm sorry I did that. I know it was wrong of me. So the way these two competitors, these two men say sorry to each other is, hey, do you have an extra cigar? Because Michael says, Dennis never went to my room. So Dennis coming to my room is already weird. And him basically handing an olive branch to Jordan was him saying, hey, do you have an extra cigar? I thought that was fascinating. But after that, Dennis really starts playing. He really starts ratcheting it up. And that's something that Michael really respected for Dennis. However, it really was Dennis's last hoorah as a professional basketball player, because after the season, and I think Krause, to his credit, saw that Dennis was kind of declining here. Oh my God, we got a super chat from Vinny Skillin, Skinny Vinny. Shout out to Vinny all the way from Tampa. That's my boy. He says he hasn't watched many of my videos, but you're really good at what you do, brother. Keep it up, my dude. Hey, shout out to Vinny. We're gonna get some more Warzone wins, my guy. But thank you so much for the super chat, Vinny. Really appreciate it. But like I was saying, Krause might have saw that Dennis was on the decline, and that's why he kind of wanted to break up the Bulls. Now, like we just talked about, you don't break up. You don't get rid of Jordan. You let Jordan walk. You let Phil Jackson walk. You don't break those guys up. But Pippen and Rodman, I mean, it's a little different. You might want to move those guys. Maybe. Pippen was not happy. Rodman was on the decline. Because after this season, I mean, Rodman didn't really have another signature moment. He didn't, actually. He bounced around the league a little bit, and he just wasn't the same guy. And we'll get more into why Rodman kind of wasn't the same a little bit later. But, you know, the way they showed Dennis and his mindset was so incredible. And that's why I'm so pumped for the future episodes, because we're seeing things we never saw. The behind-the-scenes, fly-on-the-wall stuff is just incredible. And when Rodman is breaking down how he's rebounding, he's like, hey, when the ball goes off the rim this way, I'm over here. I already know it's going to do this. Larry Bird's got more spin, which means I need to be positioned here. And he's just going through, like, when the ball hits the front of the rim, I got to make sure. I mean, just high-level stuff. And we always think of Rodman as like an energy guy, and that's why he gets rebounds, is because he's got a ton of energy. Now, how many times have we seen guys like that with a ton of energy? You know, it's like, yeah, they might get 10, 15 rebounds. Rodman was getting like 15, 20 rebounds a night. And it's part energy and part skill. And the way he broke down rebounding was just, I'm glad they showed that, because Dennis was an energy guy, but he was much more than that. He was smart. And David Aldridge said that he was the best on-ball defender that he had ever seen. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but David Aldridge, the 2K guy that we always skip, right, in the beginning of 2K, he's seen Scottie Pippen. He's seen Kawhi Leonard. He's seen Gary Payton. He's seen Sidney Moncrief. But he said Dennis Rodman was the best on-ball defender that he had ever seen. It takes a lot more than energy to get that kind of praise. It takes smarts. And even though Dennis is this wild guy who colors his hair, he's a smart basketball player. And I'm glad that they showed that. And MJ himself said that later, that Dennis was one of the smartest guys he had ever played with. Michael Jordan's saying that. So Dennis is much more than this wild maverick that the media painted him out to be. And not just the media, himself as well. I mean, wearing all the crazy outfits, riding Harleys, going to Vegas, drinking beer, coloring his hair, all the piercings. I mean, he definitely exuded that persona, but he was still smart. And I'm glad, I'm so happy that, because I knew that. I don't know if you guys did. I mean, But I'm happy that they showed that. And then, the documentary goes into his time with the Pistons, but it circles back to him dating Madonna and, Madonna kind of unlocking him a little bit and saying, you need to be the person this world wants you to be. Like, you need to be the person you were meant to be. Be yourself. Essentially saying be yourself. And that's when we get the Rodman with the crazy hair and the piercings and the outfits and all of that craziness. And Rodman really evolved. And I think the reason why that happened was because Rodman had found his place in the world as this amazing basketball player. And that allowed him to be himself. He fit in. He was always an outcast. He said he was living on the street, in and out of friends' backyards and couches and stuff like that. He didn't really know who he was, and he found basketball, and he found this team, this family in the Detroit Pistons, and it allowed him to fit in and be a part of something. And all these guys just wanted Dennis to be Dennis. You saw John Sally say that he was kind of like a super simple guy. Not much. And then once Dennis fit in and found his family allowed him and accepted him for who he was. And that's how Dennis, evolved and created his own identity. But I do want to say, why does Dennis Rodman hate Nashville? There was a moment in the documentary where he's signing some autographs and this guy's like, you should come to Nashville. And Dennis was like, Is anyone in the chat from Nashville? I haven't heard anything bad about Nashville. Why does Dennis Rodman hate Nashville? Let's take a look in the chat for some Dennis Rodman takes. George Cahill says, it's called knowing the trajectory of the ball. Not that difficult if you play ball. Well, George, I think you're selling your Rodman short. When Rodman said, hey, when you play Larry Bird, there's more spin on the ball, which means the ball is going to come off softer, so he needed to be closer to the rim. I mean, they cut it up, because Rodman kind of has a way of flowing in his own wave. So it was probably tough the way he was explaining him. But you could see that he had a method to his madness. And that's something that not a lot of people have. So I'd have to disagree with you here, George. I think you're selling Rodman a little short, and the art of rebounding, the skill of rebounding is a little more complicated than you're letting on. George also goes on to say Rodman is the only person who knows if Kim Jong-un is alive or not. Maybe. That might be true, George. Is Kim Jong-un alive? Does Dennis Rodman know? We need answers to these questions, but we won't get them. Brian says, shout out to Brian being active in the chat. That Rodman section on him talking about knowing where the ball was a highlight of tonight's episode for me. Yeah, I mean, that was one of the big things for me as well. That wasn't the highlight of the episode for me. I would definitely touch base on what I thought was the best part of tonight's episode, but that was definitely one of the parts that stood out to me as well. Danon Dean says, Hawaii rep, my brother, from Kauai. Love your videos. Hey, shout out to you, Danon. Yes, sir. 808 all day. Yes, sir. Bless her. Beverly's top dresser. Only people from Hawaii know what I'm talking about. But I gotta represent. You know what I'm saying? I'm just a kid from the 808. Big Rock Kicks in the chat says, if Rodman isn't grabbing all of them boards, Jordan and the Bulls have less rings. Yeah, man. I mean, especially when you consider, they did get 3 rings without Rodman, but they had Horace Grant and Bill Cartwright. That was a pretty formidable front line, right? When Rodman was on the Bulls, their center was Luke Longley, and they often finished games with Kukoc, and Rodman was essentially playing center. That's not as physically imposing as Grant, or even athletic as Grant and Cartwright. So you're right. Dennis kind of made up for the absence of those two guys in Grant and Cartwright, and he was pulling all those boards. So, like Kawhi says, boardman gets paid. Hey, shout out to Kawhi Leonard. That comment was from Maximo Fines. You're right. Boardman gets paid. I have that shirt. I love that shirt from New Balance. But yeah, I mean, this episode really went into Dennis Rodman, and it was very fascinating. Extremely fascinating. But then the highlight of the episode to me was when they talk about Scottie Pippen comes back and Dennis goes to Phil and he says, I'm a attempt a Dennis Rodman accent or impersonation. Hey Phil, it's awful. I can't do it. Hey Phil, I can't do it. His voice is too deep. He basically tells Phil he needs a vacation. He's torn out because Jordan said when Scottie was out, Rodman was straight as an arrow, and it absolutely was killing him. He needed to let loose. He needed to be unstrung. He was so wound up from being straight as an arrow that he needed a vacation. And Jordan was very against this, right? We saw it in a documentary. And Phil was like, hey, Rodman or Dennis, can your vacation be 48 hours? And Jordan was like, you're not going to get this guy back in 48 hours if you let him go. But Phil and Dennis had an agreement, and Dennis goes to Vegas. And this is a great thing that the director of this series has done. They give whoever they're interviewing a phone, and they get their raw live reaction in the moment, which is just an amazing tool that they're using here. And you can tell when Jordan is telling this story about Rodman requesting a vacation from Phil that Dennis cannot believe that Michael is telling this story. He's like, what? He's like, he's pointing at the phone. He's like, he's just laughing. He's like, you get the sense that there was a mutual understanding of, hey, we're not going to tell this story. And that's what makes this series great. We're getting stories, like I said earlier, that we have not heard before. It's just not footage that we're seeing that we've never seen. It's stories as well. And I believe this vacation story is one of those stories because you could just tell from Dennis's reaction that he's like, oh, well, I guess the cat's out of the bag. We're telling this story. Or we've opened a can of worms, I should say, right? Dennis Rodman, the worm. And I was smiling from ear to ear because that was such a great moment. I mean, you could really tell that there was like this, unwritten rule, or there was a pact between these guys to not tell this story because obviously it's crazy. Dennis took a vacation in the middle of the season. He went to Vegas, and Michael Jordan had to come in his room and get Dennis out of bed. And Michael's like, I'm not going to say what was in his bed, what was in his room. I went to get him, and we left. And that's crazy leadership from Michael Jordan. Let's check the chat for some reactions to that vacation moment. I still can't believe that is what happened. Brian says, cool to see all the obscure Phil Jackson playing and early coaching footage as well. Yes, absolutely. That was very cool. Him in Puerto Rico, him in the CBA. It really shows when you're interviewing people, you got to give a reason why you're interviewing these people. And showing all this early footage really puts you in the mindset, or it gives you a picture of what's going on in Phil's mind, why the way Phil is the way he is. And it's his past experiences that show us that. So that's why it's important we're getting all this old footage. Carmen Electra hiding behind the couch or something. That was crazy. When was the last time we heard from Carmen Electra? Where's she been? How many followers does Carmen Electra have on Instagram? Let's look it up. Is she on Instagram? She is. She has 1 million. Okay. Not bad. But what is she up to lately? Not much. It's just all old photos. Yeah, she might not look the same anymore after all that craziness that she did. But, yeah, Carmen Electra, 1 million followers. This just in. Yeah, we haven't heard from Carmen Electra. I guess it was great to see her back. I guess. I don't know. But, yeah, her hiding behind the couches. I mean, we hadn't heard that before. It was crazy. Let's see. Let's look at the chat here. Okay, see Nepo, you're getting a little ahead of yourself. We'll talk about Isaiah in a little bit. Hey, shout out to Good TV. Thanks for joining the chat. Thanks for joining the stream. All right, Stubbs says the best part was how cinematic they made the overcoming of the Pistons. Yes, absolutely. I guess let's talk about it. So after the whole Dennis thing is set up, they talk about how the Bulls could never get over the Pistons, right? Oh, actually, real quickly, I want to talk about Steve Kerr had a quick segment in there where he said, you had to let Dennis be Dennis. You had to give him some rope. And Phil and Michael gave Dennis a lot of rope, and that's why they allowed him to go on this, 48-hour vacation, which ended up being longer than 48 hours. But I thought this was interesting because we know Draymond, right? We know Draymond, and he definitely pushes the limits of not just himself, but of Steve and his teammates and the Warriors as an organization. I mean, Draymond got suspended for a finals game, right? He was suspended for game 5, I believe. And a lot of people think that the Warriors win that game and that series if Draymond's on the court. Remember, Draymond was watching, I believe, across the street, or he was watching an A's game across the street when the finals were happening. But Kerr, seeing Rodman get all this rope, inspired or influenced his own coaching style. He's given Draymond a lot of rope. So again, it's showing us why these people are the way they are. And that's what's most fascinating about this documentary to me. Easy in the chat says, JAHRONMON, you're probably not going to see this. Well, guess what? I see it. Your content has never seemed to disappoint me. It's always entertained me, and some of it has inspired me. Easy. That means the world to me. I really appreciate you joining the live stream. I appreciate you appreciating the content. I think one thing that I could do better is more content, but like I said, I just want to bring out the best that I have to offer. I edit all these videos. I shoot all these videos, guys, but I don't want this live stream to be about me. I want it to be about the reaction of this series. So if you guys have anything to say that pertains to this series, please let me know in the chat. But yes, the next part of the doc, they talk about the Pistons and the Bulls and the Jordan rules and all of this stuff. They talk about hiring Phil Collins. And it's just incredible because people forget, or people may not know if you're younger, that the Bulls could not get over the Pistons. And the Jordan rules was a real problem. And basically, essentially, the Jordan rules was don't let him take off, ground Air Jordan, and if he does take off, shoot him down. That was essentially it. And I was watching the doc with my girlfriend, and she's all new to this. This is all new to her. And she hates the Pistons, guys. Leica hates the Pistons. She thinks they're cheaters, and we'll get into... She really went overboard with the hate for the Pistons. Are there any Piston fans out there? Let me know, because Leica just really didn't think they were playing the game the right way. They were cheating. And I thought the Bulls took it on more of a challenge. They retaliated. They didn't like it. You're not supposed to like losing. But I don't think they ever said that it was a line crossed. I don't think. They got close. They definitely got close. The bad boy Pistons definitely got close, but it didn't cross a line of ethics. They were just physical. They pushed that line, though. They raised that bar. They definitely got close, but I don't think it was totally out of pocket. But what I thought was interesting was Jordan says back in those days, you played the same team in your division 6 times. And the Pistons were in that Central Division. So it made me wonder why there was no rivalries now. I mean, I think you play the same team in your division 3 times now. I think maybe 4 times, maybe. But that's why we don't get rivalries anymore. It's not that divisions matter. Back then, divisions mattered because you didn't have to travel as much. The traveling wasn't as good, but now it is, so it doesn't matter. But imagine if you had to play the same team in your division 6 times. There'd be a lot more rivalries, but now it just isn't there. C. Nepo says, funny how Jordan was getting pre-2013 LeBron treatment back in the day. You're absolutely right. A lot of people don't want to bring up that Jordan was painted as this guy who scores a lot but doesn't win. He can't get over this hump. I will say, though, Nepo, that it was a little bit different. It was a little bit different in the sense that you just felt like Jordan left everything out on the floor. And pre-2013 LeBron, it was always like, hey, like, this guy didn't show up. Now, you can look back at the numbers, and he definitely showed up in a lot of games. But you're talking about the 2011 finals where he scored 6 points in Dallas. Jordan doesn't really have that. Yes, Jordan might have missed a free throw every now and then in clutch situations, but you always felt like Jordan left it out on the floor. And that's why I think there's a difference between the criticism that these two guys have received and LeBron's is just a lot more heavy. And we like to think that LeBron's criticism is much more apparent because of social media and all this stuff. Yes, that is true, but also it was different. Jordan showed up in pretty much every game, whereas LeBron has these examples where it's like, did he try as hard as he could? Was he all there? It's something to bring on. Vinny says Jordan put on some weight after that second season straight. I think it was third, Vinny, but losing to the bad boys and gave it right to them on their third try or fourth try. You might be right, Vinny, but you're right. He put on weight. He realized that he needed to have guys bounce off him and not have him bounce off guys. And right when they show Jordan, lifting weights and putting on muscle and showing the importance of putting on weight and putting in room in the weight room, the first clip they show is Jordan driving the lane and Lambeer meeting him at the rim, and Lambeer bounces off Jordan. That's great directing. To find the right clip, to show the payoff of weight training. Bill Lambeer, a guy who's taller, who's bigger than Michael, a guy who's beat up on Michael in the previous seasons, bouncing off him. It really showcased the passing of the torch, right? So, fascinating stuff here. Let's see. I'm taking a look at my notes. But eventually, the Bulls get over the Pistons, and they set this up. Scotty has a migraine in Game 7, I think, right? And he can't. Scotty's like, I can't see. And you could tell Jordan is like, a migraine? Really? But what Jordan says is, I can't argue he had a migraine. I mean, it's unfortunate, but you could really tell that it got to Jordan. He didn't, and yeah, he was wrong. Pippen had a migraine. He couldn't see. It's not healthy to play when you have a migraine. And I know people are like, well, Jordan played with the flu. It's different. Migraines are, if you ever had a migraine, it's like you're dying. It's like your brain is dying. It's indescribable pain. And Pippen, I don't want to say Pippen blew the game for them, but having a Pippen that wasn't 100% definitely affected the outcome of the game. And they lose. And this is important because Jordan loses and he shakes all those guys' hands and he gets interviewed right after a loss. Remember, guys, this is the same guy who wanted his coach to be fired because he didn't put him in for 15 minutes. An ultra competitor going out there getting interviewed right after a heartbreaking loss. And what does Jordan say? He says, they were the better team. All you could do is wish them luck. They were the better team tonight. It sucks, but they were the better team. It takes so much class, guys. I'm telling you. As someone who was a sore loser growing up, I'm just so impressed that Michael did that. And the reason why this is important, because the following year when the Bulls smoked the Pistons, they swept them. And that's another thing, man. There's another difference between LeBron and Michael. The Celtics always beat up on LeBron, right? But then LeBron did beat the Celtics, but he didn't sweep them, right? It was still like they were down 3-2, right? Or was it tied 2-2? What was that game where LeBron just went off in the red jersey, where he was reading the Hunger Game books? Shout out to Khan for subscribing. But Jordan comes back and he sweeps the team that was kicking his butt. And kicking his butt, I say physically, because they were tough series. I mean, they were going 6-7 games. But he comes back, he sweeps them, he takes care of business. And what do the Pistons do? Leica's sitting there absolutely irate because the Pistons are cheaters, in her words. And she's seeing them get swept. And she's like, that's what you get. That is what you get. Leica is out of her seat. That's what you get for cheating. And then I look at her and I say, you're really going to hate the Pistons now. And she goes, that's what you... What do you mean? What does that mean? And I go, just watch. And she sees the Pistons walk right in front of the Bulls bench and not shake their hand? What? She was so mad. And here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing I have to say about that. Obviously, they were wrong. And Isaiah brought up that, hey, the Celtics did the same thing to us. Okay, Isaiah, but that doesn't make it right, dog. That doesn't make it right. And I get it. It was just what you were accustomed to and you learned from the Celtics. And that's why you did what you did. It's kind of like a dog only knows a trick that he's been taught. You know what I mean? Shout out to AZ Donald. Phil Jackson approves your subscription to the channel. Really appreciate it. But I get it. But you got to take the higher road just because it happened to you. Now, I get why you did it, but just because it happened to you doesn't mean you do it again. Two wrongs don't make a right. All right? So for him to use that as an excuse is wrong, but for him to use it as an explanation, I think is okay. He's explaining why he did it, but the way Isaiah said it was... that was what we were accustomed to. Now, he didn't explicitly say that's why I think it was okay that we did it, but you kind of got the feeling that that's why he was explaining it. If I was a director, I'd say, do you think it was right? And I would like to see what his answer was. Maybe the director did ask that, and he left it open to interpretation. We'll never know. But I get why the Pistons did that. It doesn't make it right. Because Jordan lost and he did the right thing. He shook the hand. And Jordan always played with class, right? Jordan always played with class. He respected the game for the love of the game. We all know that. Jordan had a clause in his contract called for the love of the game, which was if he felt like he didn't love the game anymore, he could break the contract and he could retire. Or if he felt like anything the organization did, not for the love of the game, he could retire. Jordan respected the game. He always had. He always will. But you need to be a better owner, Michael, for the Hornets. Anyways, that's a different live stream. But what I found interesting about the Pistons walking off and not shaking their hands, and I'd love to get your guys' thoughts on this. Let me know in the comments what you think about this whole situation with the Pistons. But I believe to be a good sportsman, to know how to lose, you have to win. That's how it is for me. I was a sore loser in my rec league. I've had my fair share of not shaking hands, of being a dick. I've had it. But when I won a championship in the rec league, I realized I was wrong. I realized that what I did in defeat was wrong. So I needed to win to realize how to lose. Do you know what I mean? I needed to know, hey, I beat these guys. I want them to respect me for beating them. And I realized I didn't show that same respect when I lost. And I regret it. I regret every time I did that. And I will never do it again. Now when I lose, I shake their hands. And I'm upset with myself, but I'm never upset with the guy who beat me. But I needed to win to realize that. It's like that for some people. It's not like that for all, but it's like that for me. What's interesting is the Pistons had already won. They had already beat the Bulls. They have already won 2 championships back-to-back, I believe, right? They knew how to win, yet they still acted like sore losers and walked off in front of the bench and not shook their hands. That's why that move is a busted move. That's why the Celtics excuse isn't an excuse. It's inexcusable what you guys did. Isaiah, Lambeer, all those guys. You don't do that. You already knew how to win. That's what makes it crazy. Now, had the roles been reversed and the Pistons hadn't won anything in the past, then I get why they would walk off like that. It doesn't make it right, but I get why they would do it, right? But I just don't get it because they had already won. It's crazy. Let's take a look at the chat. Let's see. Mr. Motown says LeBron walked off after the Dallas series, didn't shake anybody's hand. You're right, Motown. But LeBron hadn't won yet, so you understand why he did that. And if you're a Maverick, you could say, hey, look, I wish LeBron would have shook my hand. He didn't, but I get it. He's frustrated. He really wanted this one. He hasn't won yet. He wanted to win this one. I get why he did that. He's upset. I know deep down he respects me that we won. We don't know that because no one asked LeBron that question, but you understand why he did what he did. It would be different if LeBron won and did that, which he didn't. Remember when LeBron shook Steve Kerr's hand when he lost in Cleveland, that finals? He shook the hand. He shook the hand of all those guys. Why though? Because he had already won. And he realized what he did in defeat was wrong. That's how it was for me. And that's how it is for a lot of guys who are competitive. Because people who are competitive, they're cursed. I'm cursed. I'm cursed with competitiveness. It gets the best of me a lot. It gets the best of Michael. It gets the best of Kobe. It got the best of LeBron. It got the best of the Pistons. It did. But what I have an issue with is the Pistons should have known better because they had already won. You don't do that. You just don't. You don't do it even if you didn't win, but you understand why. You know what I mean? It's like when you get a puppy and they're going to the bathroom in the house. They don't know any better. So you can't get mad at the puppy for going to the bathroom in the house. They don't know any better. They're not trained yet. But then you train the puppy. And you train them to go to the bathroom outside. And then if they go to the bathroom inside, you're pissed because they know better. Winning makes you know better when you lose. At least that's my take on it. Stubbs in the chat says, honestly, I can understand why they walked off. In the heat of competition, they didn't want to acknowledge the fact that they were the next best thing. They needed to be a bigger person and teach a younger up-and-coming team how to win. Stubbs, you're right. But this just explains why they did it. It doesn't excuse them. It was the wrong thing to do, but you get why. You get why they did it. That's the whole point. Big Rock Kick says they were mad because they realized they weren't the best anymore. You're right. And like I said, it explains why they did it, but it does not excuse them. C. Nepo says Lambier seemed to be the one that orchestrated the not shaking hands and told Isaiah maybe not a whole team thing, just went along with it. You're right. But Nepo, as a leader, Isaiah was the captain of that squad. If you're Isaiah, you tell Lambier, like, bro, he's probably looking up. He's like this, bro, no, we don't do that. We're shaking them hands. That's what you do as a leader. And Isaiah should have known better because he'd been a victor previously. So he should have known better. Apparently, John Sally didn't agree and stayed on the court to shake hands. You're right. They didn't show this in the documentary. I don't believe there's footage of this, but that's what John Sally says he did. And I believe him. John Sally is a classy guy. Brian says, maybe I'll be positive and say that their bad example taught me not how not to act, but I could just root for the Pistons, not even with D-Rose on the squad. He says he can't root for the Pistons. You're right, Brian. It is a teaching. The positive thing is it taught Michael, really, he already knew this, but it really just validated, I think, for Michael. Yeah, I mean, don't be a sore loser. It's a buster move. And the Pistons should have known better. Mr. Motown says, Jordan talked bad about our city the season before. Motown, if you could elaborate on that a little bit, because obviously they didn't touch on that in this episode tonight, but if you could elaborate on that, maybe drop a source as well, that would help us out tremendously. But thank you so much for chiming in. JAHRONMON, who's my best friend, all the way from Hawaii, says John Sally stayed on the court to shake hands. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that happened. Funny how they didn't show that in the documentary. Leica would have loved that. Josiah says he agrees with me. I'm assuming he's talking about, the Pistons should have known better and all that. Yeah, absolutely. But like I said, that was a big moment for the Pistons. Let's see what else we have here in the notes. So after they beat the Pistons, they obviously go on to play the Lakers in the finals, which was great, right? Jordan wanted to be in the conversation with Larry Bird, Magic Johnson. However, from a play style point of view, Jordan really looked up to Dr. J. I have this book of Jordan. It's a huge book. It's like a big picture book. It's a coffee table book. But in that book, he says, I wanted to be like Dr. J. So even though he wanted to be in the conversation with Jordan and Magic, he didn't want to be those guys as much as Dr. J. It was just an interesting tidbit that I knew from the past. But so Jordan and the Bulls play the Lakers. Now, the Lakers, they kind of elaborated it on tonight's episode, but the Lakers were actually favorited in this series in Vegas. The sportsbook had the Lakers favorited in this series, and they lose game one. Jordan said they were a little nervous, but then Jordan comes out on fire in game two. But what they did not show in tonight's episode was Jordan actually was accused of taunting the Lakers bench in game two. And in game three, which was one of the biggest games in Jordan's career, he hit this amazing shot over Vlade Divac to end the game. Phil Jackson took the ball out, not in the backcourt. Shout out to Mr. I just missed it. Mr. I think it was Poker for subscribing. But Phil Jackson took the ball out in kind of like the 3/4 quarter length in the backcourt and had Michael gain some steam, and he hit this amazing floater over Vlade. I mean, Vlade was right there. One of the most clutch shots that don't get talked about enough in Michael Jordan's career. But in that game three, all the media was like asking Jordan about the taunting. Byron Scott was like, yeah, screw this guy for taunting. That was unacceptable. And remember, Jordan hadn't been in the finals, so maybe there was a code of ethics that Jordan wasn't accustomed to, like we just talked about the whole Pistons situation, and that's why that made that Pistons situation frustrating. But Byron Scott was pretty mad at Michael, and you have to remember, at this time, Michael didn't win a championship. Michael was this young dude, and Byron Scott's like, you're going to taunt us, the Los Angeles Lakers, the 11-time world champion Lakers? Bro, we have been owning the NBA this past decade. You're going to taunt us? Screw you, bro. Screw you. That's not how this works. At the time, Michael was not Michael Jordan yet. He was Air Jordan, this young dude who never been to the finals before. So Byron was right. Byron was right in that situation. However, knowing what we know now, Michael was right's not the right word. He was validated. His actions were validated because he ended up becoming the greatest player of all time. So, but in that moment, it was like, who's this dude taunting the Lakers bench? Rob Villa in the chat says Joe Dumars showed some class also. Never considered him a real bad boy. You're right, Rob. Joe Dumars was part of that team, but he wasn't one of the driving personalities behind that bad boy persona. It was really Rodman, Lambier, Mahorn, and even Isaiah to a certain extent. And also Mark Aguirre as well, who got traded for Adrian Dantley. Yeah, Joe Dumars never really was like a bad guy. And Joe Dumars played Jordan pretty well defensively as well. Where's Joe Dumars in the documentary? Was Joe Dumars? I don't think he was interviewed. Anyways, Mr. Motown says he did an interview and said we played dirty basketball and the city of Detroit was a bunch of thugs. Really? Jordan said that he was Detroit was a bunch of thugs. I'm gonna Google search that. Michael Jordan, thugs, Detroit. Yeah. Let's see. I got a USA Today article here. It doesn't quote Michael here saying thugs. I don't know. I don't know that story. I'm not saying you're wrong, Motown. I need a source. I need like a interview or a clip or something like that. Fanboy Killer with an interesting comment. Phil Jackson broke up the Bulls. He wanted to become GM. Yeah, that's something that is not touched on in the documentary. However, I also think there's no substantial evidence that Phil wanted to be the GM. But we all know that Phil did eventually become a GM of a team with the New York Knicks. But that was, I remember when Phil was coaching the Lakers. I'm a Laker fan. I grew up a Lakers fan. The local cable in Maui was LA Sports, so Laker games, all the Laker games were aired. I remember that GM was, or Phil was always trying to lobby for the GM responsibilities. So you're right, fanboy. That might have been something that Krause saw Phil want, and he wanted to cut that. He was like, nah, that's not going to happen. And that's probably why. But good comment, fanboy. Thanks for joining in. Johnny Min, does anyone know when the docuseries is on Netflix? I believe, Johnny, right now it is airing on Netflix 2 days later overseas. That's the deal. Like, I have a friend in Canada who can't watch it tonight. He's watching it on Tuesdays, I believe, because it airs on Netflix for them. They don't have ESPN, which I always thought was weird. ESPN, they call themselves the worldwide leader of sports, but in Canada, they don't have ESPN. They have TSN. I always thought that was weird. When I went to Canada, I was like, what is this? The TSN logo looks just like the ESPN logo. I think they're like a cousin of ESPN. I don't know. It's confusing. It's one of the things Canada didn't get right. They don't get a lot wrong. They got that one wrong. Just get ESPN. What are you doing? Anyways, but they want to show more hockey. I get it. But yeah, I think for us in the States here, Johnny, the docuseries will come out after it's all said and done. At the very least, it'll be on ESPN Plus. It's on ESPN Plus right now. So if you want to rewatch the episodes and you didn't DVR it or whatever, you could watch it on ESPN Plus. Do not ask me for the login. You're not going to get it. Jaden says Kobe is on the next episode. Yeah, a shout out to Bryant for the tip on the ESPN app. I want to talk about Kobe a little bit. Now, I have something here in my drawers. I got to warn you guys, I get sad every time I talk about it. I got the Forever Mamba issues here. Kobe's going to be on the next episode. Here's the thing, guys. Before the first episode, I was driving home from the post office. I was stuck in traffic. Quarantine, but there's still traffic. Makes no sense. And I was thinking, what if this docuseries starts off with Michael? And he goes, I want to thank you guys for watching The Last Dance. I know you guys are excited. But I just want to give my condolences to the Kobe Bryant's family, and he's doing the whole thing, right? He's basically publicly, because Jordan said that Kobe was like a little bro to him. And I always wondered, I was thinking, what if Jordan said, I was always scared of Kobe Bryant, that he would eclipse me because he was so good. He was the only guy that I had ever thought could or was better than me. What if he said that? And I was like, man, and I was crying in the car. I was like, man, if he did that, that would be crazy. And Leica's like, bro, that would wreck you. That would absolutely wreck you. And she said it might still happen at the end of the series, right? Because they're still cutting up the last couple episodes. I think episodes 9 and 10 aren't finalized yet. the producer of the show, said that on a podcast with Bill Simmons. But what if Michael does say that? Or, man, I just feel like they're saving a lot of Kobe stuff until the very end, because obviously that's still an open wound. But man, that I can't wait to see what Kobe has to say. I'm telling you guys right now, it's gonna hurt me. I'm gonna shed a tear for sure, or at least my eyes are gonna get watery when Kobe's on screen, no doubt. Because we all know Jordan, or Kobe, tried to emulate Jordan as close as humanly possible. I just want to say we have 69 viewers right now. 69 viewers. You already know. If you know, you know. If you know, you know. Josiah says he has that Kobe magazine as well. Yeah, it's great. I'm going to get these framed. Or get some protective things so I could always have it. But, yeah. I also have, check this out, guys. Let's see if I could find it. Right here. Here it is. Check this out. Kobe Bryant rookie card. Upper Deck rookie card. There's Kobe with the cast. You see that? Here's young Kobe at the rookie media shoot, the iconic brick wall that was on Slam magazine with Steve Nash and all those guys, right? Let me see if I could Google search this. We all know that iconic photo shoot with the brick wall. This one right here. Same brick wall right there on the Kobe rookie card. Iconic. Mint condition. I just opened this. I did it live on Instagram. It was from this 1996-97 Upper Deck set. And I got the Kobe Bryant rookie card. Look at that. But yes, I cannot wait to see what Kobe has to say in the next episode. I'll put this back safely in the spot. I'm going to get some protective gear for that as well. Brian is asking, did you see the clip where MJ was talking about the players he would want to play most one-on-one with? Yes. And he said, Kobe is the only one that would beat me because he stole all of my moves. Yeah, that was a great quote. But one thing you guys might not know about Jordan is one guy that Jordan always, in that same book that I told you guys, that big picture book about the Dr. J that I told you guys earlier, he said in that book that if he could play one-on-one, and this was kind of before Kobe, by the way, so I just want to say that his answer would probably be Kobe now. But in that book, he said if he could play one-on-one against any player in history, it was Jerry West, the logo. Which I thought was interesting. He would absolutely murder Jerry West one-on-one, right, guys? Who do you got one-on-one, Jerry West or Michael Jordan? I got Michael Jordan. I'm just saying. Jaden is asking, do you think Magic would be considered the GOAT if he beat Jordan in 91? Yes, I do. To me, my Mount Rushmore for NBA, right? Mount Rushmore is 4 people. Do I know everyone on Mount Rushmore? Washington, Lincoln, Roosevelt, and Adams? Who's on Mount Rushmore? I'm looking it up. I think I got that right. It's got Jefferson. Oh my God, I look so stupid. Roosevelt, Washington, Lincoln, and Jefferson. Okay, so that's who's on Mount Rushmore. There's your history lesson for today. But my NBA Mount Rushmore, to me, it's unassailable who's on the Mount Rushmore. It's Michael, obviously, the GOAT. Magic and Bird, they pretty much saved the NBA in the 80s. And the 4th guy is Bill Russell, the ultimate teammate, 11 rings, even though I think those rings are not as impressive as we might think, but still 11 rings. But he was like the first African-American coach, first player coach. What he did to stand up for his civil rights, for the African-American community, he is undoubtedly on Mount Rushmore. I don't think there's other 4 guys. Kobe's not on it. AI's not on it. LeBron's not on it. Wilt, Kareem. No, it's Russell, Magic, Bird, Jordan. Those are the 4 guys on Mount Rushmore. We could have a little mini Mount Rushmore where you're walking up to the main one and there's other guys. That's where we could have Kobe, AI, LeBron, Kareem, all those guys. Oh my goodness. We got a super chat from JAHRONMON, $20, always keeping it 100. Hey, shout out to James, giving me back the money me and him have bet throughout the years. Shout out to James for the super chat. Thank you so much, my guy. I'll talk to you later for sure. We'll get on Call of Duty. Jaden brings up Phil Jackson has 13 rings. Now, that is impressive. Phil Jackson with 13 rings. That, to me, is impressive. Brian's saying, I feel like me and Brian we're very similar. Me and Brian. Hey, Brian, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you, my guy? How old are you? Because we're on the same page here. He says that my Mount Rushmore is correct. I think it's unassailable. That's the Mount Rushmore, guys. No doubt. JSL is asking what my favorite Kobe colorway is. I'm going to say that for next week's episode because Kobe's going to be on that episode. I will bring out a special Kobe shoe, my favorite Kobe shoe of all time, in that episode, because if you guys missed it, every episode we're going to talk about an iconic Air Jordan sneaker. Today we talked about the Jordan 11, so if you missed that, after we're done with the stream, rewind it. We talk about the history. Oh man, it still smells so good. And check this out. I show you guys some of my favorite Jordan 11 colorways. Be sure to comment right now what Air Jordan sneaker I should dive into next week on next week's live stream. Let me know. But yeah, I'm going to save the Kobe one for next week's episode. Let's see. Rob says Pippen would be my choice to play Michael. He may have been the best one-on-one defender of all time, and he knew Michael's move more than anyone anyway. Yeah, just ask Magic how Pippen defended. Rob, great point. Pippen knows all of Michael's moves, so that would be an interesting one-on-one, but can Pippen score? He does have a little size on him, but one-on-one, you don't really back down. If you're playing one-on-one like these guys in the NBA play one-on-one, the post-up game just isn't really there. It's really like 3 dribbles and that's it, even 2 dribbles sometimes. Like those USA camps where they go one-on-one, I think it's like 2 dribbles and that's all you could take. It's kind of like an unwritten rule. So we're getting a lot of Jordan 12s, Jordan 8s, Jordan 3s. I think Josiah's right. I might do the Jordan 3s. It's either going to be the 3s, the 4s, or the 5s for the next episode. No doubt. Those are iconic. I'm not selling any Jordans right now, Mark. But let's try to wrap things up here. We're already at 90 minutes. I want to end on this. We all know Michael is the GOAT, right? And what made him the GOAT is his success on the court, but also the Air Jordan persona, right? He was the most famous guy on the planet in his heyday. The marketability about him was just, he really was a trendsetter. You know what I mean? He really was one of the first to, outdo his own sport in a way. And that's what helped him become the GOAT. But to me, what made Jordan the unassailable GOAT was his emotions. And we saw his emotions after he won the 91 finals. He's just emotional. I was getting a little emotional watching it. It was just this guy, you could tell he worked so hard and all he wants is to win. It's simple. But at the same time, it's complicated. You know what I mean? It's simple. All he wants to do is win. But winning is complicated. And when he finally won that first championship, all the emotions, and you can see people in the docuseries were like, that was unexpected. We all knew Michael Jordan the killer, and for him to break down like that is just Magic was saying he just came and hugged me, in the arena. And I think that's what made Jordan the GOAT. I really do. I think that was the secret sauce. That was the secret ingredient. Because Jordan was this deity, right? He was this demigod. He was this guy who flied through the air, who was a killer, a guy who went through the throat, a guy who would stab you to win a game. He was this god, a basketball god. He was the Jesus Christ that the basketball God sent to us to bring us basketball nirvana, right? He was untouchable. Everyone wanted to be like Mike because they weren't like Mike. That's what made him so unique, the mystique around him. Yet, when it was all said and done, and when he achieved his ultimate goal, we all realized he's just a man. He's human. You know what I mean? That's what made him the GOAT to me, because you related. You go, hey, maybe I could be like Mike, because if I wanted something that bad and I got it, I would be acting just like he is. I'd be showing emotion. There would be a disconnect if he didn't show emotion. Like Kareem. Kareem never really showed emotion. And that's why Kareem never reached Magic popularity, Bird popularity. Because Bird showed emotion, albeit more, aggressive, and, the hick from Flint, or he's from Flint, right? Flint, Indiana, or hick from, I think it's Flint. But you know what I'm saying. There would be a disconnect. But to see Jordan break down and just hug his dad, which, absolutely got me. Because as we all know, Jordan's dad tragically was murdered. Still unsolved murder. To see Jordan show emotion is what I think made him relatable to people, made him human, and acquired him a ton of fans and an intense fan base that said, hey, no, this is my guy. I'm a Jordan fan because of that emotion. Let's go to the chat and we'll wrap things up for some reactions. Hadir says Kareem should be on Mount Rushmore. He battled racism and is the GOAT of college basketball. Hadir, you're sort of right. He is the GOAT of college basketball. They changed the rules for him. However, he did battle racism, but he wasn't as vocal as he should have been. It's been well documented. Guys like Bill Russell were really the guys who were pioneers in that aspect, which was much more than basketball. But Kareem, like I just said, there was a little disconnect on him emotionally. He was a lot more distant than these other stars like Magic, like Bird, like Michael. So he was somewhat of an activist, but it wasn't as aggressive as his peers, like Bill Russell. Brian says Wilt and Kareem are up there for sure, but Russell is at the top of the big man pile. I'm right there with you, Brian. Now, I didn't see if Brian mentioned how old he was. I know I asked him. Oh, he's 35. You're a little bit older than me. I'm 27. So I could tell you have a lot of knowledge, Brian. So I appreciate you dropping knowledge out here in the chat. I can't wait to see what your thoughts are moving forward. Big Rock Kick says Michael got his fire to win from not being able to be his brother Larry as a kid. You're right, Big Rocks. They touched on that in the first two episodes. You're right. Chia Hao Chow is saying you got to make a better argument than that. The hick from French Lick. That's right, not flinch. Brian, the hick from French Lick. Thank you for the assist. Chiao Chow, what are you alluding to? I got to make a better argument of what? He's saying no, his mindset was psychotic. Chiao Chow is not a fan of the live after show. You're right, Hadir. Kareem I think he did boycott the Olympics, but I think he wasn't as outspoken. He did join that coalition. It was touched on in the OJ documentary. I forget what it was called. There was an organization that African Americans boycotted the Olympics. I'm not doing it any service, but it was in the OJ documentary. Josiah says, 100% agree with you. Michael is the GOAT, most definitely. He was very competitive and had a relentless spirit. You're right. And I cannot wait to see when they show when he won the game on Father's Day. the championship on Father's Day. That's going to be a very emotional episode. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about episodes 3 and 4. I want to thank everyone for joining. We're going to be doing this next Sunday after episodes 5 and 6. So be sure to join there. I'll have all the alerts, everything you need on Instagram as well as YouTube. On the community page, it should pop up right in your subscription box. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you put that notification bell just in case. We know YouTube and the algorithm does some funny things where you might not get the subscription notification. But if you turn on notifications, you will get emails. You will get all the notifications on your phone, on your computer, on your tablet, whatever. So make sure you ring that bell. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Shout out to Brian. Brian is the MVP of the chat tonight. He's the player of the game. Shout out to Brian. I can't wait to see everyone next Sunday. This has been a live after show. One last thing, one housekeeping. I'm going to show my window here. You will get emails. I just you'll get all the notifications on your phone, on your computer, on your... We got the video coming through. I just put up a video, every Nike Kyrie sneaker ranked. If you haven't checked this out, check it out. It's one of the best videos that I've made production-wise. I mean, just look at this intro, guys. I'll show you right here. Right here. Look at this intro. Look at that, guys. If you haven't checked out this video, please do so. Kyrie line is one of the most popular signature lines out there. I just wanted to bring this to you guys. So, again, the link is in the description box below. You can click it right now. But I want to thank everyone for joining today's live stream. I'll see you guys next week. I'm pumped for this series. I cannot wait to see what they have moving forward. And that's been all. Again, my name's Jaron. It's been great having you. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.